Okay, I think we are live now. Hello, everyone. It has been, I don't even know how long. It's been a while since since I've done a video, since I've gone live. But I thought I usually try to jump on for the new moons and the full moons, and I thought, what better time? And then let me pause this really quickly because we're going to get interrupted by once it connects to YouTube. Sorry. I try to get it before it connects. There we go. But I thought I usually try to jump on for the new moons. Sorry, it's not pausing. There we go. Mercury retrograde.
That's exactly what I was.
Anyways, what I was trying to say was what perfect time then to introduce my friend Amy, a Capricorn mom, who is probably in person, you're the definitely person that knows the most about astrology. And I feel like every time we talk, there's more and more stuff that you teach me. And I'm like, whoa, okay, I need to bring you on. So welcome, Amy.
Thank you.
How are
Yeah, I
you?
don't think I'm good. I don't think I can actually walk into head to heel without something happening that involves astrology between you and Kelly. Somebody's always there that's asking a question every time.
Yeah, because you're so knowledgeable. So it's like, oh, woo, Amy's here. Tell me what's going on. So that's like a good segue into so we're in right now the first full moon of the Gregorian calendar, which we'll talk a little bit about. We're going to get more in detail, you and I, about that, but we'll touch on it a little bit. But so the first full moon of 2023, I'll say it that way, which is the wolf moon in Cancer. Also, some people call it the cold moon. They know it's been known as the cold moon as well. So we're in a water sign. Um, I want you to let us know what the hell is going on right now because a lot of people are really feeling this full moon.
I really think it's because we're not used to taking care of ourselves, right? So Cancer is totally the sign of taking care of themselves. And it's because it's opposite Capricorn sun right now, right? And Capricorn's like, I have to put everybody first. I got to contribute to the greater good, forgetting that part of the greater good is taking care of yourself. So you're kind of having those warring energies, so to speak, that are like, I need to take care of other people, but I need to take care of myself too. And Cancer really does it. People miss that part with Cancer, where it's to give and receive nurturance. Capricorn will tend to overemphasize on the giving part, and then Cancer can end up picking that up. So I think that's what's happening with a lot of people, is that it's like, hey, it's time to take care of me right now. And that seems to be a big collective, for people right now, is that they're wanting to take care of themselves, but they don't know where to start. We've been told that you're selfish if you're doing certain things, that you can't put yourself first, right? And trying to put like the boundaries up now, that in creating healthy boundaries that we get called narcissistic for by the other narcissistic people that maybe they weren't. And I think it's because they grew up in times, right? Like my grandma, I definitely noticed with her generation, they have more trouble. She had 15 siblings. So putting everybody else first is and not having a lot of time for yourself was a big thing. It was always take care of your kids and take care of the family. Whereas now we're more into trying to incorporate both, where we have the kids and we're taking care of ourselves, because we can't take care of them if we're not going to take care of us, right? That's
I
when mom gets.
seriously was just having that conversation with somebody the other day about how, I feel like our parents, like our moms, were really that whole like push of like the women to go back into the work field, but then yet still have like kids at home. Like there's still the kids, there's still the cleaning, the cooking, like all these different things. So like then a lot got put on us, and self care just went like out the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like our generation now is really starting to like, well, we're the product of people who didn't do self-care and like really work on themselves. And I'm not knocking, I'm not trying to knock our parents in any way. This was society, right? Hello. And I think now we're really at this point of like, yeah, self-care is so important. It's not something that we can just put aside anymore.
No, it really isn't. And I think that was like a huge thing with everything I went through health wise, is that it was, as much as it was hard, I learned that I really needed to ask for help. And as a Capricorn, we're not good at that. We don't want to ask. I don't like asking people for help. It was always I feel like a burden type thing. I don't want to put extra work on other people. So it was definitely a thing where I had to slow down and actually take, and that's the kind of time of year it is, right? It's time to slow down and try to take it easy and focus on you.
Yeah. And especially with us also being like having Mercury in retrograde, it's even more of that like slow down.
And it's in Capricorn.
Right.
Right? We got Venus, Mercury, and Pluto all sitting there too. So I said that'll be interesting as the sun moves forward, because that's gonna set them all off. So, and they're really great, right? Because Pluto's transformation, and we're getting ready to move forward. And then we have Venus, which is attraction of things that you love and people that you love. And then Mercury trying to incorporate our thinking and processing. And they're all going to move into Aquarius together too. So that should be very interesting.
Very interesting. Well, and another aspect, like with Pluto, hello. Pluto is a planet of like eruptions and like detoxifying. And I feel like that aspect right now, in combination with this full moon, it really like, it totally aligns with the whole like forgiveness, moving on, like making peace, and saying sorry. And that means to yourself as well, right? It's not always just other people. It's like looking at yourself and making peace with yourself and forgiving yourself. And I feel like a lot of people right now, because of what we've gone through in these last 3 years, it's been a really big awakening. And there's a lot of things that people, they're being awoken to, that maybe they're realizing like, oh, I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have, like, all these different things, right? But it's like, give yourself that forgiveness. You're learning now, and now do better.
Right? Exactly. I think people are being too hard on themselves for stuff that they did not know at the time. Like, you can't, if you didn't know the information or you weren't ready. And I think it doesn't help either that there's definitely a lot of people on both sides. I try to stay in the balance in between, which I've learned that you can't do, because if you try that, then the one side says you're on the other side and the other side says, and it just doesn't go well. But no, I try to get people to understand, like, yes, they were getting told this information, but I guarantee you, I was telling you a lot of stuff 5 years ago, and you were telling me that I was crazy. And now you're like, oh my gosh, did you hear this? And I'm like, yeah, I totally know all about this stuff. This has been my adulthood.
Yeah, exactly. I totally know that.
Yeah, I think we need a lot more love and like, that's what we need to bring from the Cancer side of things right now, is like that love and affection. And
I agree. Yeah. And what a great way to start off, this 2023, like, it's just such a beautiful thing. Like, essential oil, like a really good one to work with right now would be if you have rose, or even if you've got like rose water. That's not as expensive as like the rose essential oil, but it's a really good one to just help bring in that love and bring you to a place of like, that self-love again, like you were talking about, right?
And rose quartz too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I got my rose quartz.
Mine's on my dresser behind us too.
Yeah, and definitely, like, if you have crystals, this is a great time to get them underneath this. The moon is beautiful. It's like, literally, I wish I could show you guys all right now. It's so perfect. Amy was so great at just being like, yeah, let's do it. I just like asked her last minute. And it's like, as we're doing this, the moon is literally just shining on us right now. So it's pretty amazing.
It is. It's shining in through my kitchen window, and the kids get excited like 2 or 3 days before the actual like full moon. They're like, "Is it full yet? Is it full yet?" And I'm like, "Not yet." It's awesome because it looks like it is, and it just lights up like the whole yard. We actually drove south of town last year and took pictures, and you couldn't believe, like, we did the new moon versus the full moon, and how much it was lit up compared to how dark it was is like crazy.
Yeah. Oh.
Hi.
Hello. So what special things do you want to let us know about this moon on, like, how can we like utilize the energies that we're feeling? Because yesterday and today and tomorrow I work as well, but these are the days that I'm having to like go out into the like 3D matrix. And it's just like I always have to prepare myself when I have to go to work. I mean, I love my job, but it is like, you're around a whole bunch of energies. And it was like all day. Yes, yesterday was definitely a lot more than today, but even today it was like everybody I feel was like, what is going on? Or like all these people would be like, or they were late. Like I was even late at work today. Just like all these different things. There was a car accident, like a really bad car accident right in front of the clinic today. Like all these people are like, I don't know what's going on today. I'm like, I do. It's
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing my husband and I always talk about is that when you have the full moon energy, the people that are not awake or not aware of what's going on, it just overwhelms them because it's such a charge of energy, right? It's not like the new moon where everything is relaxing. You're going to initiate stuff. You can think clearly. That's why it's good to set your intentions then versus right now. It's like, okay, let's talk to the universe, see what they want. What am I supposed to let go right now? And just let it go and let be what's going to be as far as the nurturing and the taking care of yourself and other people. Because yeah, it's like a fully charged thing. Everything is set in motion already from setting intentions. It actually, the intention setting would have been 6 months ago when the new moon would have been in Cancer, and then it climaxed to the full moon in the 6-month period. So yeah, whatever you were thinking about 6 months ago. So depending on what people were doing then and how they set their intentions, they might have overwhelmed themselves a little bit because they don't know to set intentions. That whether it's aware or not, you're still going to set those intentions, right? Subconsciously or consciously. So you got to try to do it consciously, right?
Yeah. Oh, that's so well said. I love that. I wanted to say hi to, we've got some people. I know you can't see the chat, so we got Kelly, which I hope she got on when we mentioned her at the beginning. So Kelly's on with us. We got JR, we got Intuitive Alchemist, Justin, we got Malika, and what are they saying? So Justin was saying a lot of compassion, love, understanding is important right now with all the division. So true, so true. Malika's saying hi. So JR said that he felt an energy shift in the last week, more energy, vibrations, lung, neck, and head. It was just his upper back 90% of the time. Interesting.
Yeah, I think a lot of people went through, like, I know in my house, we actually just had it go from the boys were up all night, which no big deal. We homeschool so they can do their own schedule. But yeah, they were for like quite some time. They had been up all night. And so finally they were able to shift it so that they were able to stay up during the day and like shift. And like just 2 nights ago, they were able to just completely reset everything. It was like super weird. But yeah, it was definitely a lot of energy where it was like, and it made perfect sense, right? Because we were the girls were up during the day, the guys were up at night. And so we were having like this whole division thing where the family was not getting a whole bunch of time together. And now we're back to being able to incorporate that Cancer family energy together. So it's pretty awesome.
Love that. So Malika says that she's having a dance party in her living room, and she says, wolf moon blessings to everyone. So I wanted to talk a little bit. So like I said, this moon does have different names for it, but I think most people refer to it as the wolf moon. Because traditionally, the Native Americans noticed that a lot of wolves would be howling at this time of the year. Oh, I've got the same water bottle.
I just got that one.
I love it. And I think when I think of that, like I know there's people have different reasons of why they think wolves would do that at that time, whether it was, because we're in the midst of the middle of winter, and there's less food for them and they're howling because they're hungry, or whether it's because like wolves howl in packs, right? Like for reason. And animals do things like, if we have so much to learn from animals. And I think of howling as like a really good like letting go, right? Like I just think like I just want to like howl at the moon right now, like as I see it like coming in here. And to me that just like it all aligns with the letting go, right? And the moving on, and just like let that all out. Like, so whatever type of like intentions you like to do, fold them up. I'd watched someone and they were talking about like the difference between when you're doing intentions and writing them down. For a full moon, to like fold it away from you, and then for a new moon to fold it towards you. And I was like, I love that. Like that makes so much sense, right? Because you're wanting to like let that go. I usually like to burn things, so I'll burn it. But this one I thought like a really good way, because it is a water sign, obviously Cancer. I'm so big on work. I feel like water literally connects. It's the connection to absolutely everything. I also just saw Avatar 2, which just totally like,
I haven't got to see that yet.
oh my gosh, it's so worth it. But it just like there was so much of it. Like they have this one part where they've got this like more than a quote. It's this like saying, I want to find it so I can like put it up on my wall. But it was so beautiful about how water literally is connected to everything. So a good way to do, because I do water intentions. So a way that you can do use water as letting go is the same way that I speak into water for what I want to take in. Speak into your water everything that you want to let go, and then you can use that water and pour it, like either outside or down your drain or something. And as you're pouring it out, just releasing it with gratitude and love and thanking it for all the lessons that it taught you. So I definitely am going to work on that tonight. We have Stacy joining us as well, and she says hello to you. So yeah, and Renee, hello Renee. So I also, because you talked a little bit, like I want to talk a little bit. I want to bring you on again though, closer to equinox, but we were kind of talking about, the Gregorian calendar, and a lot about like the lunar calendar, the astrological calendar. To me, the real New Year's. Do you want to touch like a little bit on that, just to kind of give people a little bit of a taste of what we're talking about here?
Yeah, for sure. So the Gregorian calendar, I was actually doing a lot of looking, and it doesn't really make sense for us to start our new year on a specific like set date all the time in that sense for that one, because it's you're setting your intentions, right? And so then with us doing it January 1st, well, the moon is constantly cycling back and forth between being a new moon and a full moon at the New Year's. So right now, it probably is not a good idea to be like, yeah, this is my plans, because we're supposed to be letting go right now. 2 weeks ago would have been a good time to set intentions with Capricorn and having all that energy for like ambition and accomplishment and stuff like that. Or we have coming up, traditionally they call it the Chinese New Year, or people will call it the Lunar New Year. And what it's actually based on is it's the first new moon of the new year for the cycle. And I thought Aquarius is actually perfect for the Lunar New Year and to be deemed, because we always think of the universe has always been, right? There was no beginning, there's no end. It's always just existed. And Aquarius is actually a fixed sign. So it's set in its place, and you have that fixed energy, and then we're going to move into the mind started thinking, the universe started creating, right? Which moves into the Piscean energy of your ideals and the dreams and manifesting them. And then you move into what I call the solar new year with Aries at the equinox, because that's when you have the initiation, the cardinal energy that's going to actually allow you to start moving forward. And it's a constant cycle between those where you have the cardinal and then it moves back into the fixed. And so you're steady and you work on things while they're steady and keep the course. And then you see what you need to change once again when it comes to Gemini, and you're going to move forward again. And it just cycles like that. And you have each of the elements cycling too at the same time. So you have that fire energy, and then your emotions, and then your thoughts, and then the actual physical grounding that happens at the end of the year every year. And it aligns better with the chakras, which is that book I was telling you, the alchemical tantric astrology. It was explaining how, well, Aquarius starts at the root chakra with Capricorn because it used to be ruled by Saturn in traditional times before we had the outer planets. And we move up until we get to Leo with the sun, and then we start coming back down in the fifth chakra again with Virgo until we get back to Capricorn and cycle around again. So, yeah.
I love it. I could just listen to you talk like astrology like all day. I'm like, can you just teach my kids all this stuff? It's so, and it makes sense, you know, like even when you said how a lot of people, when they're not in touch with these things, they're the ones that are like, what the hell is going on? Like, I can't, they're like so flighty and like not grounded at all. And it's like really the energies overtake them. And I feel like the more and more that we are disconnected from, you know, the cycles of the earth, from Mother Gaia, from the stars, from, you know, all of creation, we get into that, like, I mean, it's why they do things, right? Like when you look at the Gregorian calendar, it doesn't make any sense for New Year's to be in the middle of winter. Like, and I know, like, I guess if people are watching this that are on the others, like in the southern hemisphere, they're in their summer right now, but still, like it makes no sense that like so many people are doing these like intentions right now when we're still in this like inward state of this like hibernation of, you know, even the equinox energy of the going in, the darkness, like even though the light is coming, has returned, it's still that like so much inner work to do. So yeah,
I don't know about you, but I've been just wanting to sleep. So it's been like, this year's the first year I was like, I think that we might be supposed to hibernate. That would be a great thing. And that's how it's felt. Well, and that's with the way they did it. It gets confusing because all the zodiac signs end up being half in one month, half in another month. And it's so much simpler when you think about it from the lunar perspective, because the new moon is when the sun and the moon are in the same sign. So you have a couple days. The sun will usually enter a couple days before the moon, but then you know, right? If you have a new moon, you know that you're having lots of Aquarius energy because it's already there, or Pisces, and it makes it a lot easier to actually figure out where the sun is too in comparison.
Yeah, and just the whole cycles like of, you know, like of the earth, right? Even like of women, like women's cycles traditionally were always synced up with the moon, which is a big reason why it's called moon time. And you know, it's like,
well, yeah, and I was even reading today from my magical astrology book, and she was mentioning how the sun illuminates the moon. And I'm like, well, no, the moon's got its own light. And I think it's so old, and like, I don't want to use the word patriarchy because there was like a set of people and they like set the stuff up. It's not the masculine and feminine. We do understand each other, right? And so this is when you're saying that the sun is lighting up. Well, the sun is the masculine energy and the moon is the feminine energy. And so you're saying that the feminine energy isn't able to light its own way. And that's just not true. And it's crazy because if you actually go out in the summertime and you go out in the sun, when the sun is out, you'll be warm and you cool off if you go under a tree. But if you actually go out at nighttime and you go under the tree, it's warmer and it is colder when you go out into the moonlight. There's actually a temperature difference. So it actually, they each emit their own energy. The sun is like the warm, heating energy, and the moon is the balancing, cool, dark energy. So it's really interesting.
I love that.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, look at the moon. Like, it's so bright, you know, like.
Right. Well, and I've even pointed out that when you look at the positions of like the moon, when they're saying that the sun is lighting up, it just doesn't make sense that the moon like then appears during the day. It doesn't disappear. And they'll be like directly across from each other, but you can still see. It's super interesting, all the stuff that they tell us. And then, but if you just sit and actually take the time to absorb it, it's like the constellations, they've been the same. Theoretically, we should not be able to use astrology with, and that's people's argument, is it can't be because the skies are changing. Well, no, I have a calendar from 1200 BC that shows the constellations, and they were the same all those years ago, and everything still lines up every year with the pyramids and everything. So it's pretty crazy.
That stuff all gives me chills like every time, because it just shows us, like, again, how much we've been taken away from like the way that things are supposed to be, right? Like ancient times, even if you follow the Bible, like even in biblical, like astrologists were all part of it.
Exactly. Genesis actually states that the sun is for the days, the moon is for the months, and the stars are for the signs. So it literally says that they were giving us the signs, and if we wanted to know what was going to happen, that we would look to the stars. So it's crazy.
And that's what all in ancient times, it was always looking to the stars. And what did the stars have to tell us? And the stars would tell them like what was happening.
Even Hippocrates, who is the father of modern medicine, as they like to call him, he said that any doctor that does not have astrology knowledge has no place in calling themselves a doctor.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, it was. I still am of the opinion that if they had to say the original Hippocratic oath, we would have a much different system right now, because it did call on the. It's not bedtime yet. He didn't say yet. No, you got 20 minutes. You're okay. Okay. Okay, well, you go find your stuff, honey. I told you, bedtime is always fun. She's going to. Thank you, sweetie. I told them there's going to come a day when they're going to be like, I wish I went to bed.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
I feel that.
I feel that too. There's so many times where I'm like, is it bedtime yet for me? Yeah. So I also wanted to say hi to, we've got Stacy and Wendy also jumped on with us. And I know Stacy just recently started her job, so I hope that's going well for you. You've got a calendar you're working on, don't you?
Yes, I am working on a lunar calendar for the Aquarian New Year on the 21st. So instead of having it all based with the signs split up and getting confusing, I actually did it so that it's for each of the new moons. And so it's going to have that energy so that you know where you're setting your intentions. And I'm going to have the little crystal associations too, so that people can associate with their crystals and the energy that can help amplify that. Because all the energy is within you. The catalyst is just able to amplify it, right? The crystals. And so, yeah, I'm super excited so that it helps people more in tune with the energy that's flowing with them, so that, because the moon moves so fast compared to everything else. But like you said, especially for women, it can be a huge influence on how you're feeling and what you're going through. And now it's coming up with more men into being more intuitive and actually being allowed to embrace that and not just having to sit in that protective. They can actually communicate with us now and not be shamed for it so much as they were in the past.
I agree. And that's a huge part of like healing the divine masculine, right? Is like, you know, both male and female need to work at healing that. But for men in general, like people who are born a man, like biologically a man, that's huge because, you know, intuition for a man is definitely not something that's ever been like encouraged, really. I mean, in like our modern times. I think back in ancient times that's a different story. But and yeah, being able to like show emotion and talk about things, like, so you're exactly right. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, as a mom with two boys, definitely and they're Scorpios, so there's the water again, and they both have water moons. So having their dad who's actually able to show them that it's okay to be emotional and like express your emotions, that doesn't make you less of a man because you express those emotions. I think it actually takes a really big person to be able to actually do that, because for so many years people were made fun of just because you were more sensitive. And so then I think that's where that whole big thing, something has to be wrong with you because you're showing those emotions, right? Or I don't think it's just the way men are evolving. It's just like women becoming more attuned with the masculine energy and being able to incorporate that, where we can say we need this and be more assertive now, but in a compassionate and caring manner.
I agree. So for your calendar, because I'm going to definitely have all your links below on how you can get in contact with Amy. Is that going to be available on your website?
I probably should have that available. I'm trying to figure that part out. Yeah. But if not, if people put their email on the website, I will, and send me an email, I will be able to email them out a copy that way too. So
perfect. I'm so excited for that. And so not only are you a mama, wait, how many do you have now?
6.
Okay, I was going to say 5.
Nope, we got 6 now.
Homeschooling as well, and all this knowledge on astrology, but you also do like tarot readings and astrology, like charts as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So yeah, astrology I've been doing way longer than the tarot, because I found that in like as my way of coping with emotions and like understanding who I was as a teenager. My daughter, actually last Christmas, I was able to get her the first book that I ever got, that I borrowed it from the library and would just keep it for like weeks on end to learn all the different stuff from there. And that's how I started out. And yeah, I now have a collection of probably over 20 books, as I've shown you before, because I just love collecting them. But it also, I've been able to work with the naturopathy stuff that I'm doing. I'm able to incorporate the astrology into it, because there's medical astrology, and it's actually in my own personal health, it's helped. And now I'm able to help other people. And it makes it a lot, like identifying where to look for stuff is a lot easier when you know where to look, because the charts can point. And I like it because it teaches the concept of, you don't tell somebody that something is wrong with them. Like, you have dis-ease, and we want to get back to a state of ease. So you're not telling them, hey, you have this, and because that just throws everybody off. And then you start hearing and Googling, and that throws you down a bad rabbit hole. Whereas it's like, hey, this is what we can do. This is what your body's asking for us to be able to go back to a state of ease. Or the emotions, right? Emotions are really big in manifesting right now into the physicality, which makes sense with Capricorn being super physical, but it's also the goat fish. So it really pulls over that Cancer energy that is the emotions, and trying to get that out there, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I like it because there's so many aspects to it, like, because you have your fire signs, which are your spirit and like your creativity, and then you have the physical, which is the earth signs. Then you have your water, which is emotion, and then the air is the mental and the mind. So you have all these different aspects, and everybody has them in their chart. And whether you can have a dominance of them, which can throw a balance out. Like I mentioned earlier, I'm a Capricorn stellium, but my rising sign seems to just throw everything really off, because I'm more Cancer in traits and stuff like that, despite all my Capricorn.
Right.
And then so if you have too much of one or you have too little, then those actually, even like when something is absent, that actually is like a big significator to look at what kind of energy that you're missing and you need to incorporate. Are you sharing your books?
what book is that?
Well,
Is it
it's
Trans-
Barbie Rescues the Ponies.
oh. Love it. Yeah. So people can reach out to you for tarot readings as well as astrological, like looking at their chart more in depth, right?
Yeah, we can do in depth. If you have just like you want to check it out and see if it aligns with you, we can always just check out a specific planet or your big 3 rising signs. And then, yeah, I have different options so that it makes it easier. I can do a full chart, which is a lot more intensive. But we do need your birth time. So you can always ask your parents if you don't already know it, or if all else fails, you can also contact where the hospital can usually tell you pretty close to where your birth time was. Now they all record everybody's, which is crazy because it actually, lots of the old books that I read that talk about it, one specific one I got was by a Rosicrucian, and he's like, do not tell people that you don't trust your birth time. It is, and so now I said, with all the stuff that we know, the government gets everybody's birth times when they're born. And I thought about it.
Yeah.
I totally thought about it after Lexi and I signed all her papers. I was like, I should have put the wrong time. That would have been so me to do.
Yeah. Well, it's funny that because so Sage, my middle daughter, she was born at home, and she, like, when she first came out, her like umbilical cord snapped because she just like flew out. So they had taken her to my couch and were like making sure she was okay. And then when she was finally okay and she cried and all that stuff, then I was finally like, oh, what time is it? And so the midwife looked at her clock and she was like 12:01. So then they marked her for like the next day, basically, because it was like 12:01 at night. But I've always been like, but no, she was born like at least like 5 minutes before that. Like,
when did she first have her breath though? Because that's what I actually learned recently. It's actually when we take our first actual breath is when they believe the soul is like fully into, that's like our initiating into the body. Like we're already there, but it's like initiating that energy. Yeah. These are books from like the 1900s, early 1900s and like late 1800s. And it's amazing how much information they have. And it's funny because you don't learn this stuff in school. And yet it on the books that I get, because they're the reprints, it says this has been selected specially because it is considered an important work to history and society. And I'm like, but you're not teaching anybody any of this stuff, right?
Well, that really resonates with me, because that makes sense that would have been, so that basically would have been when she was all like taking her breath. And
because I had the same situation with our fifth, Freya, because she didn't breathe for like a minute or so. And then I was like, oh shoot, what time is it? Because I was like calling Chris because we were in the ambulance because they didn't listen to me as I told them this baby's coming right now. We're not going to make it. And so then, and for crazy synchronicity, when I ended up breaking my hip, it was on the exact same corner that Freya, which is my Capricorn baby, which rules bones, was born. Yeah. So that was pretty crazy too. But I definitely 100% was much happier to have baby at home this time. And like, it was such a relaxing atmosphere. And then it gave everybody, like, we were calm. We were able to, my daughter was keeping track. So we knew exactly when she was born. And it was a great experience for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love it. And your littlest and me share a birthday, which I love. I saw a really great comment from JR, and this is something that I don't know if you've heard about this, but I've also heard this. So he says, not sure if it's true, April Fool's is the real New Year's. September 11th would be Yahshua's real birthday. I've heard a lot of talk about like when, and like I've heard people say that the 11th, that was his actual birthday, and that's why they did what they did.
Well, we do know that if you look at like the description of what it was like, that it was definitely in September We know that for sure. So, and ironically, it's kind of them throwing it in our face because it's Virgo, the Virgin, which his mother was called the Virgin Mary, right?
Yeah.
And the April Fools, it's kind of weird. Like I said, I don't believe in having like a specific set date, like saying just this day for 100%, because the new year would be when you, like that would be the solar. So it would be when as Aries moves into, or the sun moves into Aries, right? Because it's the first official sign. So it can fluctuate a little bit, which is why we have that eventually the equinox isn't going to occur in Aries anymore, even it's going to be in Pisces. It slowly is moving back, which they call the procession of the equinoxes, because they were actually talking, when you have them talk about the cherub in the Bible that was set to guard Eden, it had the 4 faces, which were the bull, the lion, the eagle, which most people don't associate, but that's Scorpio, and Aquarius being the human face, Leo being the lion, obviously, and the bull for Taurus. And those were actually, they believe back when that would have been originally written, what would have been the cardinal signs then. They weren't fixed signs back then. The cardinals were on them. So they were the initiators. And that's why you have so much history where you have the cow for and the bull for gods and goddesses, and then you have the lion. And like my favorite is the Sphinx that they totally defiled, that was a giant lion. It doesn't make sense to have the human face on there, but if you know the era in which they were saying that it was built, it would have been during the Leo age. So they would have been building great big sculptures of lions, just like during Taurus they built the great big statues of bulls, right? So it's crazy.
It is like when you really start doing your own research, it's like, okay.
Yeah. And right. And Joshua said to not fear the water bear. Well, the water bear is Aquarius, and he was the Piscean age. And so we have what they call them avatars in every single age. We have somebody that is represented. So he was the fish. And actually the name that they ended up changing with Jesus, it actually means fishes. Mm-hmm. So it's George W. Carey has an amazing book that explains, like, it's called The Tree of Life, and he goes and explains, and he has some other books that he like went further in depth to it. But yeah, it was like all about what the Hebrew words actually mean, what the letters mean, and it's like crazy. Like that's where I learned about all my cell salts, and he has like crazy like stuff for accuracy on. I got his biochemical book and it explains it based on your astrology and everything too, and it's like amazing.
I love that. Yeah, and there's so much to learn about, or like to unlearn first, and yes, then to find like your truth, right? But yeah, I mean, even like when you look at the name that they've given Joshua as Jesus, like J's were not even around. Like
I know, so I always.
It's quite funny when you like, that's only like scratching the surface, right? Like when you just scratch the surface. So like if anybody were to just go do like basic, like very minimal research of like just his name in general, there's just so much to find out. And then once you start going like deep into it, it's like, oh wow, okay. Like I don't use the name like Jesus at all anymore. I mean, and I watched a really good video yesterday with Sherry Divband, and I forget I think her Kimberly, I think was her name. And it was about Mary Magdalene and Joshua. It was amazing. Like I actually want to watch it again. I ordered her book because she's got 3 books out, but I ordered her like most recent book. She just explained so much of it like so well. I just feel like, even with like I said, I don't follow the Gregorian calendar, but I mean, even going into like the 2023, there's so much power in the numbers, right? So like, we're at 7. 7 is like a very big number for like, it's a galactic number, it's a very spiritual number, and it's a number of like intellectual, like to really start learning things. So I feel like a lot of people this year.
And it's interesting that you say that, because it's actually the Christ, for the numerology, it's the Christ like personality and associated with Yeshua. So that's pretty, it's funny. Chris is my husband and he's the 7, so it always makes me laugh. But yeah, no, lots of people don't know a lot of that stuff. And when you take the different letters and stuff, it actually is a significant thing. Like a letter in the old languages sometimes represented a whole word. So it makes an entirely different meaning. Like they talk so much about wine and making the new bottles and new wine, right? Well, you don't want to be putting old wine new wine into old bottles. So you're always regenerating your body. That's what it means, is the body. And wine always in the mythology and in the ancient texts represents the blood. And so that's where the cell salts came into place, is that the cell salts are what make up our blood that flows to every part of our body and nourishes it. So when we become depleted, each cell salt has a specific thing, and then it just starts catalyzing. And it was cool for me to go to the naturopathy and them to have the blood test, because then it confirmed stuff for me too, right? So for me, they said that one of the major deficiencies is always going to be what's opposite your sun sign. And that's Cancer for me. And sure enough, when they did the blood test, my lowest one was the cauliflower, which is associated with Cancer. So I thought that was pretty amazing, like how accurate. And other people telling me, like, I'll give them their list and I'm like, hey, so do you have any of this? And they're like, that's crazy. Like, something should not be that accurate. I'm like, I know, but it is. It's crazy. And it was cool because the part that astrology plays in that one is that when your mom's pregnant with you, well, we're only pregnant for 9 months, right? And so your mom furnishes you with the first 9 cell salts, but then you're born, so you don't get adequate amounts of the last 3. And so those are ones that are going to be lower, and that will give you your characteristics in life where you have to work on them and replenish them, which is cool. I also heard a fun fact that they believe humans are supposed to take a year to develop, but our heads would be way too big. And so that's why we're the way we are, and we're born earlier, because I mean, I was thankful that our youngest was born a couple weeks early, because I'm pretty sure she would have been a 9-pound baby if she waited any longer. So I was like, yeah, that probably ended well.
Yeah.
It's an interesting concept, because it is, once they hit that, you notice with babies that once they hit that 3 month, they become very aware of things. Then, like, they're aware and stuff, but they become much more independent. They're able to sit up. Every other animal can walk within a few hours of being born, but not us, right? So it's cool.
I love that. I wanted to say hi to, I saw Mary popped in, Joe popped in, and Christine. So hello to everyone. I wanted to ask if you still have some time, what are your views on because I've wondered this about, like the 13th astrological sign. Do you work with that?
I totally did research on that.
Yeah, okay. I knew you would.
Because I was mentioning to you, it's like really throwing me off. So some really cool facts that when you go from Taurus until Virgo, the moon moves 12 degrees every single day. Like, it's consistent. And then you get to Libra, and all of a sudden it starts speeding up until it hits 16 degrees, and then it slows back down to Taurus. And I was like, well, that's weird. So it seemed like, there is apparently I can't say his name, Ophiuchus, who is actually Asclepius, who was the first naturopathic healer in ancient times and the son of Apollo. He is kind of like poking his head in there a little bit. So then the sun kind of technically crosses over him. So that's where this idea that there's a 13th sign. And I guess astronomers and stuff are like, we're tired of astrology. And I mean, they're pretty mad that it's so accurate and they don't like it. So they're like, no, there's actually 13 signs. So then it's like, oh, this is all hocus pocus. Well, I think, in my personal opinion, it's great to actually learn it. And him poking his head in there is a great time, because between the Scorpio regenerating energy and the expansion of, ironically, Chiron, who is another healer that Asclepius was trained with. And so Asclepius actually was so efficient at healing that Hades got upset, or Pluto, if you want to call him that, from Scorpio. And he was so upset, he went and complained to Zeus and said, you have to do something. So Zeus struck him down But then Apollo obviously was devastated, so they put him into the sky. But it was because people were living too long from the teachings of Asclepius, so then they weren't getting the souls to the underworld that was leaving Hades with nothing to really do, because he's supposed to be ferrying souls and guarding souls across. And so, yeah, it was, and it's, like I said, it's really interesting that they put where he's poking his head and where it is, because you have Chiron, the centaur, on the other side with Sagittarius, and Chiron is your wound that you need to heal, that then helps you to be able to heal other people. So yeah, depending, like I have a Cancer Chiron, so mine is all around my family. And for me, it's been a huge thing that I didn't want my kids to have the same kind of upbringing that I had, and then I wanted it to be more open and to be possible for us to have like those conversations and stuff. So it's been healing and being able to learn how to communicate that myself, and then teach the kids how to do that. And so it's nice because it's a nice tool too for me to be able to see with the kids like what their wounds are, and then see where we can work on that with them too. So it's nice because they have a couple grandparents that have the same, because Chiron is a 50-year cycle. So typically the grandparents are the ones that are going to line up with, whereas I have karmic ties with a couple of my daughters because they are born with Saturn, which is the god of karma. And that, and he's a lot of fun when you turn 28, and then all of a sudden you're wondering why everything's falling apart, and it's really confusing. But yeah, I've seen a lot of people go through that the last couple of years, and lots of divorcing, and people realizing they really didn't know. They didn't know. Me and my husband are together all the time, so we know exactly who each other are. I'm not saying that we agree on everything all the time, but we know going into all this stuff we knew. Whereas we had a lot of people that all of a sudden had to stay home together, and they realized they really didn't know the person that was there, and they had a lot of stuff that they didn't know how to deal with. So it was like pretty crazy time.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And this is like, you know, just hearing you talk, like I said, I could hear you talk about this stuff all day long. But this is where, like, if somebody were to book like a session with you, it really is, it helps you to understand yourself so much more when you understand, like, you know, astrology is so much more than just our sun signs, right?
Right? Yeah.
So much more.
Earlier, you were like, sometimes I really don't feel like a Taurus, and I'm like, well,
yeah,
I have my Capricorn thing where like I'm very ambitious and I really want to get stuff done, and I do not sit still well, but that's also Aries, Mars. I cannot sit still at all. But then it's like, I just want to sit, and I didn't know I wanted to be a mom. I had fully planned on not being a mom until I was 28. And then we found out we were expecting our first, and also my whole world just changed. And I realized that's what I really wanted. And I wanted to be, and it was hard for me because society says that I should, because I was always the bookworm, and everybody right now, as I'm taking my classes and I'm getting hundreds, they're like, well, isn't that just the norm for you? I'm like, yeah, but I'm still excited. But that, because I got that kind of grades, everybody expected me to want to be climbing the career ladder, and that wasn't just what ended up happening. It was, I wanted to be at home, and it actually gave me a whole different perspective, right? So it really helped me be able to go in. Astrology is supposed to be about bringing awareness. I see so many people online in like Facebook groups, and they use it to justify their behavior. They're like, oh, I'm like this because I'm this. I'm like, but there's two sides to everything. You don't have just the polarity of like your sign versus its opposite sign. Even within yourself, you can use your traits in a positive way, or you can use them in a negative way, right? Leos can be extremely loving and compassionate, or they can be like, hey, why aren't you loving me more? Why aren't you giving me the attention that I need, right? I actually have one that is she's the only fire moon in our whole house, and I feel horrible because we're all water or air, mostly water. So she kind of gets that energy where we're like trying to explain to her, it's like, we love you so much. But she feels either we really love her or we really hate her. There is like no in between most days. And so she also has a lot of Aries, so that's the awareness thing, right? Aries is all about bringing awareness, which that's where Chiron is right now with all the wounds and stuff. So collectively as a wound, we're experiencing a lot of becoming aware of who we are. So I've been having to help with that. And it's like a lot because I have, at least I have some Aries placement so that I kind of understand what she's going through.
I was just about to ask you where Sharon was, so thank you for mentioning that. So I was like,
yeah,
right now.
Actually, and it's been like that and is going to be another 4 years, I think. Aries is actually the sign that it moves through the longest. So yeah, it's definitely a big shift and should be a few more years of fun.
Yeah, a lot of letting go, right?
It really is. And like, just, it's people becoming aware, like be aware of it's self-awareness, right? So being aware of yourself, and the best way to actually change things is you just change like one small, everybody thinks that you can go back in time and squash a butterfly and it's going to drastically ruin the world. Nobody thinks about doing that in life, right? In just the everyday, like right now, that means the future could be drastically different by just the simplest thing that you did.
So true. So true. Yeah, and even, you know, like the basics of like knowing your, not just your sun, but your rising and your moon, like just starting there, you really start to understand yourself so much more.
Yeah, and that's why we call them the big three, right? Because yeah, it's a really big thing, because that's your sun is your soul essence type energy, right? Your rising is the personality that everybody else is seeing, and then like that's kind of basically who you are, like that as a person. And then you have your moon, which is like you're in depth with your emotions, and that's actually a relation to what your past lives and your mother. So I have a whole book on that. That was like super cool. But yeah, and it shows like, so your moon ends up showing why you can have kids that have the same parent, but they have drastically different views of what that parent was like. So it's very interesting that way.
So interesting. And it really does, again, go into that whole, like, you know, the only part that they really like put of astrology out there is like your sun sign, and then
yes, and they put it's all in your sun sign in the paper all the time. Don't read your sun sign unless your sun is in your first house. Do not read the sun sign. You want your rising sign because it is based on your personality and who you are. So you actually read your rising sign. So yeah, when I go read a Capricorn, it kind of can sometimes resonate a little bit because it's the polar opposite of my rising sign, but go and read it. And my husband will tell you time and time again, he reads his and every single time he's like, that is way more accurate than what I'm reading from my sun sign. And so yeah, it's crazy.
Again, it just makes so much sense that, you know, the part that they're giving us of like, well, here's some astrology and here's like what we'll like teach you or whatever, but then it's like really not like where
and when you're just going from the sun, you're just getting one dimension, right? You're not getting that whole dynamic, because your sun can be totally overpowered by it. You're like, no, that's not me at all, because you have what we call a stellium in another part of your chart. So that's 3 or more planets that occur all in the same sign. So for me, I'm supposed to be more dominant in Capricorn. That's, like I said, my ambition comes in there. And actually it's my ambition towards health and wellness, because it's actually in my house of health and wellness. So that's why my career is so driven there. So yeah, it's like, it's a big dynamic. It could be one aspect can totally throw off the whole rest of the thing. So you're not going to resonate because you're going to be more dominant. That energy is going to be more powerful than it is for your sun sign.
Oh, I love it. I think Mary had to leave. I hope Mary has a good night. We have Melissa. Ooh, welcome, Melissa. So she says, maybe that explains why mine never fits. Yeah. Check your rising and moon. I feel like your emotional aspect of it, like.
Yeah, I know, especially just 1 minute, sweetie. With like my moon's in Scorpio, so it's fall, so it's like a really hard placement. But then it's also my moon's my 5th house, so that's why I have so many munchkins, because that's the sign of where people become parents. It's really interesting. It's like our creative center and stuff like that. And so mine was around children. But yeah, your moon really, you really see it in the Scorpio moons, especially the groups that I was in on Facebook, because they feel it being a water sign, they feel so much. And you know, like Scorpio has that personality for being vengeful and really like vindictive and stuff, but they don't take into consideration where it ends up coming. Scorpio is actually a very sensitive sign, and they're very emotional. I have 2 Scorpio moon kids myself, so it's interesting seeing how it plays out for them. And my daughter is very much like me because she also has an earth for her sun sign, so we end up balancing quite well. And I can see it's nice because it gives me the opportunity. I know where she's coming from, and I can understand and support her in ways that it wasn't possible for, say, my mom, who was a Capricorn moon, to, even though Capricorn and Scorpio are like friends and they do pretty good, she's still, being an earth moon, she couldn't understand my emotions the way that my husband even does, because his son is in in Scorpio. So then he's able to understand where I'm coming from. And they say that's actually, your moon compatibility is actually a lot more dominant in how you get along with people than if you were to do sun signs.
So that makes so much sense. Like,
yeah, or if your sun sign and their moon sign are the same, they're booked from their grandma. And they yeah, because you're able to understand, right, that energy and connect on that level then.
I love that you brought that up, because not only is it so good to know like your own personal chart, but to know like for relationship wise, right? And if you've got kids, and or if you're in a partnership, it helps you to be able to understand them so much more. So it really should be a part. I mean, someday we will get back to the mystic arts being taught. I truly believe that we, for those that, aren't like you and I, that are exactly, our kids and able to teach them this, I truly believe that the mystic arts will come back into teaching.
Well, and I think that would be really great, because it's helped me to understand where the kids, like when something's like, I don't get what you're doing, it's like, okay, I'll go look and see like, where is this energy coming from, right? And then I'm able to identify that and understand it a little bit better.
And Scorpio moon is also very, like, you guys are very intuitive and connected with like the mystics, right?
Yeah, it's the esoteric, it's in the taboo, the taboo house, and like life and death.
Yeah, you share a moon sign with the Queen of Ravens, Janine.
Oh, nice. Yeah, no, it can be very intense, and I can get very, my husband will be like, hey, I think you need a bath or maybe a nap. You just need to go be by yourself for a little bit.
That's awesome though, right? Sometimes we need that reminder for self-care.
It is. It definitely helps.
Yeah. Aww. Well, I know we are starting to get into bedtime here for your little ones, and my little ones aren't with me, so that's, I know Kieran he was like, wow, your kids are doing so good. I'm like, yeah, no, they're with their dads. Otherwise my kids are usually, well, not my girls, but Mikhail usually is up here. And Mary Jean, hello, welcome.
Yes, that's my Freya's the one that's Mikhail's age, so she's been in here the whole time. She's like, we were 8 months with baby sister, and we still haven't got the please don't come in while she's napping part yet. Every single, I'm like, Dad's just right there. And he's like, I don't get it. She does not come in. I'm like, I know. And I'm like, just go ask Daddy. He's there. I promise you.
But they want mama.
Right? And that's the total stereotype, right? Every time it's like, always ask mom a million questions.
Oh, yeah.
I look forward to seeing what that's like when they have kids though, and how it's evolved with guys being, because for my kids now, Dad's been home, so they do see that, and so the boys are going to see it. So I'm interested to see how, when we have grandkids, how they're incorporating, if they're still going to become ask mom for everything, or if they'll be more into asking dads and stuff for stuff. That'll be cool to see.
Well, thank you so much, Amy. You are just like a fountain of knowledge when it comes to astrology. And like I said, I am going to have all her links posted below once we're done the live. So you've got your Facebook, your Instagram is so beautiful. I love like all the things that you put together with your tarot readings. And so definitely if anybody's interested in having their astrological chart or a tarot reading, Amy is so good and talented at this. A Capricorn Mom is where you can find her on Instagram, and her website is www.acapricornmom. Is it .com or .ca?
.ca.
.ca. Yeah. So
make sure you put 22 for the Capricorn Mom on Instagram, because I had a different one, but they kept linking it to my Facebook, and then they'd like put my actual Facebook stuff on there, and I was like, I don't get it. So I made a new one that is not linked.
Yes. And we just talked about that, about the 22.
Yeah. So yeah, it's 22 at the end, which is one of the master numbers and the number of the Fool for tarot. So.
And your number, right? That's your soul.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you, Malika, too, for encouraging me, and Danielle, because they've been encouraging me to step out of my box. I get too nervous to do stuff. I'm really good at writing stuff down, but when I have to say stuff, I get super duper nervous.
You did amazing, as I knew you would, because you're shining who you are. You're showing your true self, and you're sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. So I thank you so much for that. I look forward to getting together. I love how our paths just continue like to bring us.
I know, even when everything went down 3 years ago and all of a sudden I wasn't coming into the clinic anymore, we ended up meeting anyway outside of that. It's crazy how that worked out. I really spent a lot of time being like, I know her from somewhere. Like, where could it be? And didn't put the two and two together.
That's the universe bringing people together. Exactly.
Yes.
So thank you so much. Thank you to everybody in the chat. Definitely go. Like I said, I'll put her link so you can go find her. Go find Amy, show her some love, give her a like, and book an appointment if you feel called to. So thank you so much. And goodbye to all your little ones that are there.
Bye. Thank you.
Have a blessed full moon, everybody. Get your crystals out there and cleanse them.
And your water.
Yes, and the water, exactly. And like I said, feel free to do like a letting go water intention. Speak what you want to let go of, and then pour that out, opposed to taking it in.
I even go in the shower, and I like focus on washing away with the shower, wash away all those negatives, and move forward.
Love it. Thank you so much. Everyone have a great evening.